Welcome to Monday Meditations with Paul and Carol. Today is January 18th, 2021. We are going to continue throughout the month to be looking at the biblical story of creation. Let me read Genesis 1, 20 through 31. The creation of day 5 and day 6 from the Message Bible. God spoke. Swarm ocean with fish and all sea life. Birds fly through the sky over earth. God created the huge whales, all the swarm of life in the waters, and every kind and species of flying birds. God saw that it was good. God blessed them. Prosper, reproduce, fill ocean, birds, reproduce on earth. It was evening, it was morning, day 5. God spoke, earth, generate life, every sort and kind, cattle and reptiles and wild animals, all kinds. And there it was, wild animals of every kind, cattle of all kinds, every sort of reptile and bug. God saw that it was good. God spoke. Let us make human beings in our image. Make them reflecting our nature so they can be responsible for the fish in the sea, the birds in the air, the cattle, and yes, earth itself, and every animal that moves on the face of the earth. God created human beings. He created them God-like, reflecting God's nature. He created them male and female. God blessed them. Prosper, reproduce, fill earth, take charge, be responsible for fish in the sea and birds in the air, for every living thing that moves on the face of the earth. Then God said, I've given you every sort of seed-bearing plant on earth and every kind of fruit-bearing tree, given them to you for food. To all animals and all birds, everything that moves and breathes, I give whatever grows out of the ground for food. And there it was. God looked over everything he had made. It was so good, so very good. It was evening, it was morning, day 6.
As I meditate on the creation of day 5 and 6, I think of the times when I have been awed by the work of God's creation. I love my backyard, and I love the birds love my backyard. We have 2 bird feeders right outside the windows in our dining room, and different kinds of bird visit the feeders throughout the year. Yes, and we also have a book that helps us identify the birds that come into our yard. Throughout the year, we enjoy watching robins and sparrows, chickadees, grackles, and finches. I love hearing the coo-coo of the mourning dove through my open windows during the summer months. We have seen owls and hawks come through our backyard. We've seen woodpeckers and quail. Sugar water-filled feeders nourish a variety of hummingbirds off and on throughout the summer. Some birds build nests in our trees. Others take over the birdhouses we have set up, and swallows always return to the little opening above our front porch where they build a nest every spring. I love creating a bird-friendly habitat for the birds that make their way through our North Idaho home and agree with God that it is good. Now, I have been surrounded by various kinds of water my whole life. Rivers and lakes were a big part of growing up in North Idaho. I swam in them, I fished in them, I explored their shores, and I loved being in and around water. Now, about 15 years ago, our family took a road trip to Southern California. One of the places we visited was Catalina Island, and we booked a snorkeling adventure as part of our time on the island. I could have floated on top of that water and watched what was below me for hours if I would have had the time. It was like observing a whole other world. I remember our guide having food to draw the bright orange Garibaldi fish to us, and all of a sudden, our bodies were surrounded by these fish. As I peered down into the ocean, at the kelp forest as it gently swayed back and forth, and saw the beautiful sea creatures that God created swim in their underwater world, I realized that it was good. Now, this past week, I was transported back to the Lord's creation of day 4. At the end of verse 16, there are the words, "And then he made stars." This past Thursday morning, I experienced those lights in the heavens in a magnificent way, because the day before, our town lost all power, and our town was plunged into darkness. There was no light. So that morning, Paul told me to go outside and look up at the sky, and I'm so glad that I did. It was a bit overwhelming. The stars seemed as if I could reach up and touch them. The sky was clear. The lights were big and bright. And it was definitely good. So, as I have thought of times when I am in awe and wonder of God's creation, I would like you to think of a time when you were in awe of God's creation. Maybe you saw the stars this past week. Maybe you have hiked to the top of a mountain and saw a spectacular view. We would love to hear about your encounter with the awesomeness of God's creation. Paul, do you have a time to share about the awesomeness of God's creation?
You know, part of what comes to mind for me is I get overawed at times by God's creation. I love to go to the Hiawatha Bike Trail near here and ride across the beautiful mountains of North Idaho and western Montana and look out across the amazing vistas that you can see. And I love to ride across the trestle bridges. And I love to stop and get off my bike and walk to the edge of that trestle bridge and look over, and I get overawed, and I want to see that. I want to experience that, but it overwhelms me. It is frightening for me. I have discovered in my old age I have more of a fear of heights than ever before. Carol and Cosette and I had a little hike on our way to
Oregon coast.
Well, the Oregon coast. And that was one of the first times that we were walking along an edge and I didn't know if I could continue. I wanted to go on the hike. I was going to go on the hike, but it overawed me. I can go out and see the beautiful stars. One of the things that I like about our backyard and those stars the other night is that I also was enclosed. I had some trees on either side. I couldn't see everything. There are times when the night sky is too big for me. And I think, is this what people felt when they saw an angel appear? Was it like that? I'm okay with that. I don't seek out those moments, but I do kind of rejoice in those and go, man, that is amazing. What God has created is awesome. Sometimes over awesome. What about you?
You know, I think back to when we lived in Montana. There was a couple winters where we went to Yellowstone Park.
Yeah.
And we went cross-country skiing. And I remember the first time we did it. And, you know, you kind of start in a place and there's kind of two groups of people. There's the snow catters, the people on snowmobiles, and there's the cross-country skiers. And they separate them. The snowmobiles have their own trails, and eventually you get to a point in the park where you don't hear the snowmobiles anymore, and it's just quiet. And there's not a lot of people out there cross-country skiing, at least when we had done it before. And you just go and you are walking or skiing along these trails, and you see, buffalo up on the hills, and you see different animals, you see big herds of elk, and it's just beautiful. And it was just so wonderful. And I think the thing I loved the most about it was that we were out there seemingly by ourselves, and just with the animals, and just going along these trails at our own pace, and it was just beautiful. And I always think I would love to get back there someday and ski again.
I talked with my brother Kent this last weekend, and him and Robin saw king tides on the Oregon coast. I never heard of king tides. Someday we're going to see the ocean in the winter and have a storm come in.
Yeah.
Oh, that will be wonderful, and I will be scared. And you will want to get closer.
Yes,
and I will say, no, you're not. Yeah. God's creation.
Yes.
It's pretty amazing.
And I think it's just taking the time to stop and observe and look at it, and just meditate on just the wonder of what we see around us each and every day.
Thank you again for joining us. We hope that you are enjoying our look at creation. We certainly are. And it's making us look at creation. God's wonderful work. God bless.
Yeah. And if you're here in the Silver Valley and you want to join us on Thursday night at 6 o'clock at Mountain View Congregational Church, we will be there to even ponder and meditate more on God's creation and share communion together, and just come and meditate and be quiet and just really focus on God's beautiful creation.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.